We're going live. This is Voltage Control Lab. Hopefully this will work. Hopefully the timing is good. Seems about right. All right. Well, welcome to Mod City Live, Spring Break Edition. It's Thursday, April 2nd. We've got a cat right here. This is Xena. This is Voltage Control Lab, voltagecontrollab.com, YouTube, Voltage Control Lab, Twitter at VControlLab, Instagram at Voltage Control Lab. And you can find me. My name is Joe at Computo on pretty much everything. You can find my music on Spotify, SoundCloud, things like this. I don't know if you'll like it. If you're more of the modular side of things, you might check out my other group, The Blessed Oscillator. And if you like more of the weird bass music, house music, that type of thing, then check out the Computo stuff. But you might dig the Blessed Oscillator, the group that I'm in. What's up, Grant? Good morning. Astrofish, what's up? I guess it's good afternoon now. Wambra, Ed, great to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. Tim, hey, thanks for coming in here. I appreciate your joining us. So, we're going to get back into some maths today. And Osheri, good to see you. Hope everyone is good all around the world. And yeah, we're going to get into this today. Any side notes to mention? Not that I can think of off the top of my head. So let's just do it. Let's get into some maths. Got some screeching tires outside. Okay, we're going to switch over to maths. Okay. So today we're going to start looking at a couple of patches that might take us into a different space with maths. We're going to do a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? What they might call inbreeding our maths, patching maths into itself, and getting some weird and complex results from this. For instance, I think we're going to start with something like, good question, Grant. Where is everybody from? I'm in LA. I think Astrofish is in France. Where in France, Astrofish? We got someone from Vancouver. We had some Norwegians in here. We had some Norwegians yesterday. Well, we'll see where everyone's from in a minute. But we're going to slide over onto maths here. Oh, Wambra's in Chicago? I don't know why I thought you were in the UK. Oh, I know why. It's because you said you were playing snooker. New Mexico in the house. All right. Mike needs to be just a bit louder. Okay, let me get that. Hopefully that's a little bit better and not deafeningly loud. There's our UK. Main out for stream is pretty low. I think it should be a little bit louder now. Hopefully it's better. Okay, I'll try to speak up as well. So today we're getting into some more complicated patches. And let's recall that, let's see if I can get this mic in a good place. There we go, it's a little bit better. Okay, we're going to recall that we were sending signals into the channel input. We were sending clocks, gates, pulses, all things like that into the trigger or the signal input. And so today we're going to start taking those similar signals and maybe doing some more with those. And I think right now we've got a pulse patched in here. We really need a gate. So we're going to try and find a gate signal. In fact, maybe let's take out of that, just patching up a gate signal. Okay, so there's our gate. Maybe slow it down a little bit there. And we will give ourselves a little bit more time there. Okay, so slightly slower gate sequence. So today we're going to take this signal, we're going to patch it into our signal input. And we're going to get from this, if we patch the output, let's patch the unity output for a minute. And if you recall, when we send a gate into our signal input, we get an attack, sustain, release envelope, right? The sustain lasts as long as that gate lasts. Let's right, we can see when the gate goes off, the sustain ends. A little bit longer there. I guess that's as good as we're going to get. Okay. So, of course, if we send that same signal into the trigger input, we get a 0 to 10 volt attack decay envelope. No sustain. It doesn't care how long our envelope is. It's going off the charts there because it's going all the way to 10 volts. All right. So, and we also looked at, of course, just turning on cycling coming out of that unity output. And if you recall, we can also, instead of coming out of that unity output, come out of output 1 and control the amplitude of these things. Turn off the cycling. Patch into the signal input. And we get these attack, sustain, release envelopes that go from 0 to 5 volts, or however high the peak of that incoming signal is. We're just softening. It's basically the exact same signal. We're just softening that onset and the release time, right? Hopefully we can see that there's a connection there. When this gate ends, that's when the fall time begins. So what we're going to do, and of course we haven't used these so much at the bottom, the math outputs, right? We did use the sum output the other day because we were adding together sequences, things like this. We today are going to use the OR output. The OR output outputs the same thing as the sum output, except only in the positive range. If anything goes into the negative range, it doesn't come out of the OR output. So if we come out of that OR output, of course, we probably want to make sure that all of our other 3 channels of attenuverters are turned to 0 to 12 o'clock. Channel 1 is still going to be turned up because we need it to be controlling the overall amplitude of that sustain, right? Right now, this is going to work the same way as it did a minute ago. As we turn up the attack and the or the rise and the fall time, we get an attack and release shape at the end of that exact same gate shape. But we're also going to route out from the end of rise output now. In fact, let's just dial these right back up a little bit so we can see some of that shape. And maybe we'll bring the sustain down to some mid-range area. We're going to take the end of rise output, and we're going to use that to trigger channel 4. So end of rise out, patching itself back into the trigger input on channel 4. So what's happening now? We're going to be triggering the attack and or the rise and the fall time, I should say, on channel 4. That signal, as we increase the level here on channel 4, should start to give us a rise and a fall time added to the output here. So if we turn up that output, turn up that signal, and then I think we're going to need to turn the attack and decay time up here. And as we keep in mind, they were at like virtually non-existent at all the way down at 0. As we turn these up, let's just turn them up together. We're going to notice that an accent, a hump, is added at the front edge of our attack sustain release envelope. And we can shape. This isn't maybe the perfect attack, decay, sustain, release envelope. It's really an attack, then another attack, then a decay, and then sustain controlled by our channel 1 sustain. The intensity of that little peak of the rise and fall here dialed in by the amplitude on channel 4. Kind of a funky attack, sustain, release envelope. There's a little bit more. It's really an attack, decay, sustain, release. And we can control that hump on the front end, that accent on the front end, using, and we can listen to this. Let's see how loud it is. Elongate that gate. Kind of a funky attack, sustain, release envelope. And you notice if we dial in the channel, is that too loud? That channel 4 attack time past maybe noon, it starts to delay the second attack. So we get sort of an attack, sustain, attack, decay, sustain, release envelope. It's kind of odd. weird shape for our standard envelopes. So not exactly our standard envelope shape. We could turn this off and work with an attack sustain envelope and maybe trigger the cycling of this channel using the end of rise here. Okay. So the OR output is also really handy if we send external signals into it. We can take a sine wave, for instance. And, okay, so let's maybe unpatch this gate signal. We'll patch this to a sine wave, which is going to be hard to see. So let's shift this back into the positive range. Okay, so there's the sine wave. Actually, here, let's just put it back down here. Just make it a little bit smaller. Okay. We're going to take that sine wave, stop triggering this thing with it. We're going to send the sine wave into channel 2. And as we increase the amplitude of that channel 2 output, we're going to get what we call half wave rectification. And let's turn it all the way up so we can see exactly at its... So right now, it should appear as if it's only showing the positive portion of the incoming sine wave, right? This is basically taking the incoming signal and it's passing it directly to the output. If we, instead of the OR output came out of the sum output, we'd see the exact same signal. Actually, if we go past a certain point, it does amplify the signal a little bit. I think it's around 3 o'clock. If we go above that, we should see the signal actually get a little bit higher amplitude than the original signal even coming in. So we can leave it at 3 o'clock. It should be pretty close. Out of the OR output, though, we only get the positive portion of that signal. The negative portion is flattened out at 0 volts. So this is half wave rectification. Full wave rectification comes if we send this sine wave in to 2 channels. Well, full wave rectification would be inverting anything below 0. So what we can do is take that same signal and send it to a mult. Okay, so there's that incoming signal. And then we take the multed copy of that signal and we send it into channel 3 on this maths. Hopefully you guys are following me here. And on channel 3, okay, so that's the channel 1 input. Let's turn that back to 0. And channel 3 should look the exact same as well. Right? If we send it out of the OR output, we get just the positive content of that wave. And here's where it gets interesting. If we come into that sum output again, let's recall that any incoming signal, when we control this attenuverter and turn it into the positive range, we get that exact incoming signal and some control of the amplitude of that signal. If we go to the negative range, to the left of 12 o'clock, it inverts that signal. So we can take that single sine wave, mult it, and send it into 2 inputs. And then by using the OR output, we can send one of those into the positive range, and we can invert the other. So if we want to look at what those 2 signals look like, those are the 2 signals, the original signal and the inverted version of that signal. It's the exact opposite shape, right? It's just upside down, the upside down version of it. But when we send this to, or we have this come out of the OR output, it's giving us the positive of one, the negative of the other, both only positive or only coming out into the positive range. This is full wave rectification. So half wave rectification, full wave rectification. Taking that same exact wave shape and we invert it right here on channel 3. So when one goes into the positive, the other one's going into the negative, and as they switch, we only end up with that positive result. What's up, Bill? HR? Brian? Nathan? Got the whole gang in here. Thanks for showing up, you guys. Really appreciate your joining us. We're just talking about some of the inbreedable functionality on maths. This is when we patch maths back into itself. Just fixing my mic again here. Okay. Let's take a look at some other ones. What if we unpatch those? What if we don't patch anything into maths? We're just going to come out of channel 1. Zero everything out here for a moment. And turn these things to the linear modes. Okay. So we're going to put channel 4 into cycle mode. We're going to come out of the end of cycle output into the trigger input on channel 1. This is the arcade trill LFO. And then as we turn up the output on channel 1, let's mute this. And let's see, we're going to also route the output of channel 4 into the both input on channel 1. And now as we turn up and down the let's move in time, and we don't really need this anymore. Okay. So we're triggering channel 1 using the length of the cycling channel 4, and then the shape of channel 4 is modulating the fall and rise time over here on channel 1. And we can put that into the negative range too. And if we want that to be an inverted signal. And this is just, I'm not going to hear a lot of this on the volume. We might hear more when we're controlling the pitch. Let's go into the FM input. You can see this kind of superimposing of the shape of channel coming out of channel 4 onto the longer shape of channel 1. Intense. Typical application to use that waveform would be, I suppose, I mean, I don't know that there is a typical application per se. In the maths manual, this is called the arcade trill because I think it kind of has a little bit of the flavor of, an old arcade sound effect. Like arcade game type sound effect. What's really making that effect? It's kind of the stepped upward motion of that sawtooth wave as opposed to a smooth sawtooth wave. You know, that might give the impression of a, I don't know, lower quality synth engine, which typically back then in those old arcade games, especially, they were using extremely low intensity synthesizers. That's why all of the sounds sound kind of the same, but they would have to use note commands and things like that to get the most, the most effect out of their very simple means that they could. And, you get like fast trills, things like that happening to create the effect of a, someone jumping or, these types of weird things in in what am I talking about? In those old video games, I suppose. Um, okay. What else? What other questions do we have here? Other questions. Just looking back through your messages here. Now, I'm not sure if you meant, Nicholas, the wave rectified wave shapes or the triller that we were just doing, but um, yeah, and if you guys don't have maths, something like Rampage might be in the department. You might need to use something like Rampage and a attenuator, attenuverter, mixer, things like this. This is kind of where maths starts to get a little bit more complicated in that it's got all of these features in one and not a lot of other modules really do all of that at once. We might need to piece together a collection of other modules to do all of those things. Okay, let's try another patch where these things are kind of going crazy. I'm trying to get this mic moved around. Need to get one of those ones you can just pull. Do your thing. Okay, so let's take one of these things. We're going to take the output of this channel, go into the trigger on this channel. And once we start them going, we should get kind of a relationship happening between one channel and the other where they're triggering each other. So then we need to take that output and come out of the output of channel 1, the output of channel 4. Let's look at that too. That would be that's not what I wanted to do. Let's make these both linear. Let's slow down our time. Let's turn these into the positive range. Okay, and one of them is in 5-volt mode, one of them is in 2-volt mode. Okay, there we go. Okay, so in this arrangement, we should get something that looks kind of like almost reversed, inverted, not really quadrature, but in a sense kind of like a quadrature. We might have to speed these up a little bit to really see the or did I mean slow them down? When one rises, it triggers the other one to fall. Or rather, the end of the rise of the first one triggers the second one, and that's when it starts to rise. And then once that one reaches the end of its cycle, it triggers the next. And if we stop one of these, they should stop. And then, again, we have to start the cycle just briefly to kind of start them going. And now they're triggering each other. Let's... You might even be able to try the sum output. However, now they're just going to be added together. One will be added at the top of the next. We can maybe turn them down a little bit. We're really just talking about other ways to get complicated LFO shapes. almost creating a sequence of rising and falling segments. Just a constantly regenerating two-step sequence. This shape, then this shape. So, you know, not really quadrature, because we're not dealing with 4 oscillators. And they're not really kind of like dealing in the same relationship as quadrature LFOs, but there's plenty of tools if you want a legit quadrature LFO. This is just kind of like an interesting way to make oddly complex wave shapes. You know, if we just want basic wave shapes, of course, we can just come out of one of these. Very easy to get those. Not really, you know, a challenge to find a good basic LFO. You know, if you're looking for other weird LFOs, go check out DivKid's Oct module. I think I'm pronouncing that right. OCHD. I wonder if that was intentionally making a pun on common modular user mental hangups. OCD and ADHD. We all tend to be have a little bit of that persuasion. Maybe I'm just reading too much into that. Okay, what else are you guys saying here? Oh, Nathan won DivKid's Christmas prize a couple of months or years ago. That must have been nice. Oct on pre-order since January. Yeah, it is a very highly sought after module. One of those things that maybe you don't realize the joy of it until you have your hands on it. Okay, what else do we have in here? The bouncing ball. There's a couple different ways to do a bouncing ball effect. And the bouncing ball effect, of course, is the effect of a increasing tempo change in maybe an LFO shape. Things like that, right? We're going to hear that typical effect in a minute. So we're going to send a nice long gate, first of all. Let's find a gate. Let's take something like this. Use that same signal we were using a minute ago. We're creating this gate signal, by the way, using a two-step sequence. High step and a low step. High step, low step. Right? Plus 5 volts, 0 volts. That's this blue signal you see down here. Doesn't look like it's 0, but it is 0. And we're going to take that and we're going to trigger channel 1. And we're not going to use the sum output this time. We're going to come out of, now it depends on what we want to use this for. This might be more sensible as a volume control. We're going to come out of channel 4, and we're not going to route that to the pitch anymore. We're going to route that to the VCA. Okay. And we're going to maybe shorten our envelope over here. All right. Then we're going to take channel 1 output, get in there. We're going to send that into the both input on channel 4. I'll maybe set it around there. And then we're going to use the end of rise output into the cycle input. So it should start it up once we get going here. Let's set this to linear. Set this to linear. Give ourselves a longer fall time. Now this is kind of the opposite of bouncing ball, right? So we're simply triggering channel 1 it's creating a sawtooth shape, which is changing the speed of the rise and fall time on channel 4. That's what's getting the speed change. And then channel 4 is being forced to cycle every time that rise time ends on channel 1, which is pretty much all the time. If we change the rise length, and we can change the channel 1 attenuator to control the overall intensity of the signal going into the both input. You know, the first scope I got, let's stop this for a second. The first scope I got was this thing. It's the DSO Nano, and I don't even know if the battery is going to work. It looks like it's just died. Needs to be powered. But this thing has a 1/4-inch input on the side. Get it in here. It's got this little channel input there, and it can even generate a wave. You got a wave out. Just powers via USB. This is actually open source, so there might be ways to reprogram it. But very useful little device. I think you can probably get these for like $50 or something. And you know, it's cheap, portable. You can have it on your, you know, next to your computer on the, or next, not computer, next to your modular, or next to your computer, I suppose. Okay, let's see. Let's, what time is it? Okay, still got a little bit of time. Let's try this other trilling envelope. Oh, actually, we kind of did this one earlier. Let's not do this one. Let's go back to that's the one I was just looking at. Let's do the independent rise and fall times. Okay, so we're gonna just keep a signal going in here, and we're gonna come out of channels 2 and 3. We'll send our main output from here. Let's just mute this for a second. Put that in linear mode. Okay. And we're going to take channels 2 and 3 and send them into send 2 to channel 1 rise, channel 3 to channel 1 fall. We could do this just the same on channel 4 as well, just to be clear about that. And then, so we have these incoming signals, right? And we've seen that if we change the variable response knob, let's make those a little bit shorter. There we go. And just get a few of these on here at a time. Good enough. Okay. If we change the variable response knob at the bottom of each channel, or channels 1 and 4, we're going to change the shape of the rise and the fall time. Right? When we go towards the exponential side, we get this much shorter pin, and we get more of a swooping upward motion. And then if we go to the logarithmic side, we end up with this more rounded, longer envelope shape. This more kind of bulbous, ends up almost looking like a sine wave, a half wave rectified sine wave, almost. Half wave rectified. Okay, so, but what if we want to control those independently? Well, we can use this routing setup with channels 2 and 3 routed to the rise and or fall time. So let's set this back to linear for a moment. And as we'll just elongate the wave shape a little bit. As we turn up channel 2, attenuverter, we elongate the rise time. The rise time will start to take a shape closer to our logarithmic shape. If we turn that into the negative range, we're going to get something that looks it's really drastically shortening and elongating, of course, the independently shapes 1 and 2. And then if we take the channel 1 output and we have to mult that output because we're going to send it to both channels 1 or channels 2 and 3's input. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to mult it, send one channel in here, same signal in here. As we turn that up, let's shorten these. this going? That's not the right channel. I want channel out from channel 1, not from the end of rise out. There we go. Okay, so let's set this back to 12 o'clock. So we should get something pretty similar to our longer rise and fall times in a linear fashion right now. And as we turn up channel 1, the rise time should start to take on a little bit more of that logarithmic shape. Trying to get more of it on there. Okay, and as we turn channel 3 into the negative or positive range, we're going to get an altered shape to that as well. Let's see if we can get this thing to actually, instead of maybe sending a trigger in here, let's just cycle this. So as we turn these up or down, we might have to accommodate by changing the length of our rise and our fall time. But now we have this independent ability to shape the rise and the fall time. Of course, if we have a stackable, then we might not have to send this channel 1 out to a mult and send that into 2 channels, but thanks for stopping through, HR. Just saw your message. It's a little bit complicated to get this type of a control, right? But we're basically allowing ourselves to get this independent rise shape and independent fall shape, and we could be triggering this or we could be looping, cycling as the case may be. But as we alter one shape, rise or fall time, we might also need to alter the channels 2 or 3 attenuverter to get a little bit more pronounced version of that shape. But you see now the attack or the rise time is logarithmic, the fall time is exponential. Right? So looking at other ways to control and alter these shapes. Yeah, it looks kind of like a shapeable shark fin, right? I think maybe another thing worth considering is that using that sum output, we've been using that sum output for this input doesn't really matter. Really just looking at the green right now. We talked about how we can use that sum output, or at this point even channel 1, and we can use the attenuverter to attenuate the amplitude of that LFO, invert the amplitude of that LFO. But what if I want that inverted signal to be in the positive range? Well, if we use the sum output, course, we could use the inverse output. What if I want this to be a bipolar signal, right? We need to use the sum output, and we can use channels 2 or 3 to alter the shape of that signal. Now, right now, we're just using channel 2, or channel 1, rather. And if we have it turned into the inverse, we can use either channel 2 or 3 to offset this whole thing into the positive range. And that will be the opposite of what we're hearing. And you can see it actually clips it, pushes it a little too far. Right? That should just be an offset version of what's coming out of the channel 1 output, which is inverted. We could also send any signal into that channel 2 input, right? What if we take an envelope signal? We'll just take a looping envelope from our dual ADSR envelope from IntelliGel. That is too long. Okay, so there's the attack decay. What if we take that output? Where's the cable? Where's the cable? There's a cable somewhere here. So many cables. Okay, so we're going to take that same output, what we're seeing in blue on the scope right now, hopefully. We're going to send that into input 2. And as we turn this up, of course, we should get something that looks very similar. If we turn it into the negative range, we can offset it. So we get the mirror image of that signal, right? It's not just inverted. It's actually the mirror image in the positive range. Of course, we could frequency modulate it. I guess it's amplitude modulating, actually. So just using these math outputs for a little bit more than we can get out of those basic individual outputs. Just looking at your notes here. You guys like my air humping maths GIF? It's really the sum of my life's work right there. Okay, just checking out what our next one's going to be. And yeah, I think maybe we'll just leave it there. We'll do some more on Saturday. So, getting into some of the internal self patching functionality of maths, triggering, kind of back and forth in some cases, the channels to create these ebbing and flowing shapes. I think this is kind of where maths is doing its most interesting stuff. It's of course a uh, excuse my clunking of my mic stand again. It's of course a very functional utilitarian device if we use it as an envelope or LFO, in just a basic rise and fall shape. But hopefully we start to see a little bit of the complexity involved in this thing because this is a module that just by the nature of having so many functions built into one thing and mixed together, it's capable of things that you might need a whole rack of modules to achieve otherwise. What's up, Gabriel from Spain? Good to see you. Iran. Wow, good to see you here. Hope everything is well over there. Um, Washington State. Hope everything is well up there as well. All right, let's come back to the room here. I'm once again on the fringe of my chair because a cat has taken it midway through patching. But yeah, really awesome to see so many people from so many different places. I can't thank you guys enough for coming in and joining us. And we're going to do another show tomorrow at noon, of course. Tomorrow is going to be sound design recreations. So if you have some tracks with sounds in them that you'd like to recreate together, bring them in, bring us the YouTube timestamp, and we will have a listen to those sounds, and we'll try to reverse engineer them and recreate them together. And that's going to be our Friday show, and then Saturday we'll do another math show. Do some more. We'll kind of finish up, if there's even such a thing with maths, on Saturday. Um, yeah, I think Ed brings up a point. How do we use some of these things in a musical way? Um, whoa. I think the first step is to spend some time with them to learn the internal deep, sometimes deep functionality. Send those parameters, those modulation sources to things that you can identify. Right? We were listening to the effect of maths today, mostly in relation to pitch or volume. Those are sometimes some of the most noticeable elements when we're modulating things, right? We can really hear the um, the motion created when it's pitch. We can really sometimes maybe hear that motion when it's amplitude or volume change. But um, if we're patching to some obscure place where we might not notice the difference, um, it might be hard to tell what the functionality is. It might be hard to tell exactly what was going on there. So I think it's important to maybe go through the Maths Illustrated Manual and build some of these patches yourself. It will walk you through them, with some graphics similar to what we're doing in these live streams, and patch the outputs to things that you'll notice, things that you'll hear motion in those elements, and from there, maybe it inspires some musical results. It might just be an exercise in, okay, let's make some weird complex modulation, and maybe there aren't a lot of direct applications for that. That that at least it depends maybe on the type of music you're making, and so um, I think we have to maybe differentiate where can we use drastic modulation, right? Using a 0 to 10 volt. Oh, I have my seat back. Using a 0 to 10 volt rising and falling LFO to control pitch might not be the most musical application of such a thing. We might need to attenuate that. We might need to um, uh, use that modulation for something else. Uh, I think we start to look for other subtle places that we can inject some modulation in there and get some musical motion. And sometimes attenuation is what it's all about. It's all about subtlety. So, dialing it back to a usable range is probably an advisable thing in many of these examples. Some of them are just kind of to show what crazy cockamamie stuff can you do with maths if you patch it into itself. Maybe there isn't a really obvious use case scenario for that weird ADSR or AADSR um, envelope shape, especially if we can just use a normal ADSR envelope. But an interesting exposition as to why and how maths works, nonetheless. Duke of Prune says, "Too bad me and Colin Benders are streaming at the same time. I thought he was earlier than me, so maybe. Um, well, I'll tell you all right now. It's not going to matter next week because I have to change the timing of this starting next week. I have to start up teaching at school again. So, um, still figuring out what that's going to be. I don't know if we're going to be able to do every day. I think it might be counteractive to my ability to properly prepare for these things if I'm doing it every day and teaching all day and trying to make music and live a normal life. But I think we can maybe do at least 3 days a week, and we'll figure out what other times uh, will work. But that will hopefully resolve any overlapping issues with Colin's stream. I would be bummed to miss that too. Vangelis Blade Runner sounds. Didn't he use like 12 synthesizers to make those, or is that just his standard technique? Um, let's see. We got people from Netherlands in here. What's up, Pennywise? We got what's up, Joel Batador. I think I said hi to you, Bill, Brian. Wow, we got people from all over. Anybody from Pacific Asian countries? I feel like that's where we're missing out. We got to get DJ Asuka in here. Um, so, what else? Any other things to mention right now? Well, tomorrow we'll be back. Bring some sounds that you want to remake. Maybe we can try some Blade Runner. I think there's probably a ton of presets that could achieve that. But um, bring some, yeah, CS80, right? There's like there's even a patch in the CS80 in the V collection. Maybe we'll just jump on that real quick tomorrow and see what the hubbub is about. But yeah, I think we need some effects too. Switzerland in the house. All right. Thought Vangelis was all CS80. Deckard's voice module should be out anytime now. Oh, I didn't even know he was doing a module. That's kind of scary. We're all gonna be struggling to grab that. Um, Check out Solvangnan channel on Twitch. He uses Deckard's Dream almost nightly, and loves Blade Runner's sound. It's a, kind of in the right time and energy for Blade Runner soundtracks, I think. So that kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, heavily CS80. I think Vangelis is known because he has that kind of huge glass studio with dozens of synth engines all linked up and yeah, crazy stuff. Yeah, Deckard's Dream is amazing. I'm a huge fan of Roman's work. Uh, he is just a kind of a genius guy. But yeah, all right. Well, we're going to be back here tomorrow. Hope to see you guys all again tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time, same time. And bring some tracks that you want to reverse engineer and demystify, and any other Q&A that you might have, modular related or otherwise. If you want to talk about how to release your music, if you want to talk about any of these things, then we will get into all of those questions and um, and more, hopefully. So, I guess I will see you guys all tomorrow. Hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, the YouTube community page, all of those things, and send me your links. Send me your YouTube links if you have some sounds you want to recreate, and we'll do it. And if you like the show, give us a like and a follow and all of those things. And Brian, yes, we can do lessons. I haven't done private lessons in a minute through Voltage Control Lab, but happy to do that if you want to hit me up through Instagram or anything like that. And Derek, watch out for scams, especially on Craigslist. That sounds way too good to be true. $500 for Deckard's Dream. That sounds like someone someone fishing for a someone to get someone out of the house with a pocket full of cash and take advantage. So be careful out there. Pulse masked mixing. I'll look into that, Ed. All right, Wambra, Astrofish, Bill, Brian, Ed, Derek, Nathan. Thanks you guys all for coming in here. Duke of Prune, appreciate the the info and you're joining us, and Nicholas and Batador, and who else is in here? Brian, we missed. Oh wait, Wambra's still here. Somebody had to bounce. HR had to leave, I guess. Joel, thanks you guys all for coming in. Really appreciate the hangout, and you're keeping me company. And hope to hear about some fun stuff on your maths. So, talk to you tomorrow at noon. See ya.